Captain Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Horizon's edge, watching the alien council chamber through the main screen. 6 months had passed since Earth made first contact with the Galactic Council. 6 months of hope that humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Now everything was falling apart. The alien ambassador, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms named Veltharis, stood before the council. His voice echoed through the transmission as he spoke about Earth and its people. Ji-hoon felt his stomach tighten with each word. "The humans are dangerous," Veltharis said, his voice calm but firm. "They learn too fast. They adapt too quickly. In just 6 months, they have already started copying our technology. Technology that took us thousands of years to develop. They will become a threat to all of us." Ji-hoon wanted to scream at the screen. Dangerous? Humans had done nothing but try to learn and cooperate. But he stayed silent, watching as the council members began to vote. One by one, the representatives of 47 different alien civilizations raised their hands. The vote was clear. 43 agreed. Only 4 opposed. Earth would be quarantined. The official reason was mutual protection of all civilized species. But Ji-hoon knew the truth. They were afraid. Back in the ship's engine room, Chief Engineer Hana noticed something strange on her screens. Energy readings were spiking at the edge of the solar system, near the Kuiper Belt. She ran a quick scan and her eyes widened. A massive energy barrier was forming, surrounding the entire solar system. "Captain," she called through the comm, "we have a problem, a big one." Within hours, the barrier was complete. It was a wall made of quantum energy, impossible to see but impossible to cross. All communication signals from Earth stopped reaching the galaxy beyond. The 12 human ships that were outside the barrier, including 3 exploration vessels and 9 cargo ships, were detained immediately. The aliens called them processing facilities, but everyone knew they were prisons. On Earth, President Dae-hyun gathered his advisors in the emergency war room deep beneath the capital. The room was packed with the world's leaders, all connected by video screens. Defense Minister Nari stood beside him, her face grim. "We need to tell people the truth," Nari said. "The council isn't protecting us. They're imprisoning us." Dae-hyun nodded slowly. He knew she was right. Within an hour, he addressed the world. 8 billion people watched as their president explained that humanity had been cut off from the galaxy. But he also explained why. The aliens weren't afraid of human violence. They were terrified of human innovation. Dr. Sunho, Earth's leading quantum physicist, was already analyzing the barrier from his lab in Seoul. He worked for 72 hours straight, barely sleeping, studying every energy pattern. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The barrier wasn't just a wall. It was a trap. Built into its core was a fail-safe mechanism. If anyone tried to break through the barrier from the inside, the entire structure would collapse inward. The energy would compress and explode, destroying everything in the solar system. Earth, Mars, the colonies on Jupiter's moons, all of it would be vaporized in seconds. Sunho called an emergency meeting with the Global Science Council. "They built this barrier to be a prison and a bomb," he explained, showing them his data. "If we try to escape, we die. If we do nothing, we're trapped forever." Dr. Yuna, a younger physicist who had been working with Sunho, studied the data carefully. "There has to be a way," she said quietly. "No technology is perfect. Every system has a weakness." Around the world, people reacted differently to the news. Some panicked, some protested, but most did what humans had always done when facing impossible odds. They got to work. Military bases around the world received new orders. Every scientist, every engineer, every researcher was reassigned to one goal: find a way past the barrier. But they had to be careful. The aliens were watching. Any obvious attempt to break free would trigger the failsafe. Commander Tai Yang, one of Earth's top military strategists, proposed a different approach. "We can't break through it," he said during a closed meeting with world leaders. "Not yet, but we can prepare. We can learn. We can get stronger while they think we're helpless." The plan was simple but risky. On the surface, Earth would appear to accept the quarantine. No aggressive actions, no demands, no threats. But underneath, humanity would mobilize everything it had. Every resource, every mind, every factory would work toward one purpose: survival. On Mars Colony, engineer Jisoo received orders to convert the entire industrial complex: the mining operations, the terraforming equipment, the cargo facilities. Everything would be repurposed. What looked like normal colony expansion would actually be military preparation. Jisoo looked out at the red landscape of Mars and smiled grimly. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They thought isolation would weaken humanity. They didn't understand that pressure creates diamonds. Ji-hoon's ship was ordered to stay near the barrier, monitoring it constantly. He spent his days watching the energy patterns, looking for any change, any weakness. At night, he thought about the 12 ships and their crews trapped beyond the barrier. He wondered if he would ever see them again. In the detention center called Fortress Kelmara, Pilot Minho sat in his small cell with the other captured humans. The aliens treated them well enough: food, water, comfortable beds. But they were still prisoners. Minho spent his time watching the guards, learning their patterns, studying their technology. "We're not staying here," he whispered to his fellow prisoners one night. "Someday, somehow, we're getting out, and when we do, we're taking everything we've learned with us." Back on Earth, as the first month of quarantine ended, President Dae-hyun made a secret broadcast to all world leaders. "They wanted to cage us," he said. "They wanted to stop us from reaching the stars. But all they've done is give us a reason to fight, a reason to become stronger than they ever imagined. We will break free. And when we do, the galaxy will never be the same." The quarantine had begun. Humanity's greatest test had started. And somewhere beyond the barrier, the Galactic Council celebrated their victory, completely unaware that they had just made the worst mistake in their 10,000-year history. 18 months had passed since the barrier went up. Commander Taeyang walked through the new United Earth Space Command headquarters, watching thousands of people work with focused intensity. The isolation had changed humanity in ways the Galactic Council never expected. Instead of weakening, Earth grew stronger. Cut off from alien trade and technology, humans didn't collapse. They innovated. Every day brought new discoveries, new inventions, new solutions to problems that had seemed impossible just months before. Taeyong stopped at a large board displaying the current mission status. The words at the top were simple: "If we can't go through it, we'll go around it." In her laboratory, Dr. Yuna barely noticed the days passing anymore. She had been studying the barrier's quantum signature for over a year. Everyone else had focused on breaking it. She focused on understanding it. And finally, she found something. "The barrier operates on quantum principles we theorized about 20 years ago," she explained to a room full of scientists. "But we never tested them because we didn't need to. The aliens built their technology and never changed it. They found what worked and stopped looking for better ways." She pulled up a holographic display showing the barrier's structure. "They're using a fixed quantum frequency. It's incredibly powerful, but it's also rigid. It can't adapt. But what if we could phase through the layers instead of breaking through them?" Dr. Sunho, her mentor, studied the data carefully. "You're suggesting we vibrate at a different quantum frequency. Slip between the barrier's layers like a ghost through a wall." "Exactly," Yuna said, her eyes bright with excitement. "We become invisible to their technology." Meanwhile, at Fortress Kelmara, Pilot Minho continued his careful work. For 18 months, he and the other prisoners had been studying everything around them. The guards thought the humans were just being curious, asking innocent questions about how things worked. They never suspected the prisoners were gathering intelligence. Minho had mapped out the entire station's computer network. He knew which systems were monitored and which were ignored. He found a way to send tiny bursts of data toward Earth, hidden inside normal station communications. The guards' scanners never noticed because they were looking for obvious escape attempts, not patient espionage. Each burst contained information about alien technology, military positions, and council plans. Minho didn't know if the messages were getting through the barrier, but he kept trying. Every day, more data went out. On Mars, engineer Jisoo stood in what used to be a mining complex. Now it looked completely different. The massive drills had been converted into weapon prototypes. The ore processors were now manufacturing advanced components. The cargo haulers were being rebuilt as stealth ships. "How long until the first batch is ready?" asked a military officer visiting the facility. 3 months, Jisoo replied. "We're building everything in sections so it looks like normal colony expansion. The Council's spy satellites won't see anything suspicious." She pulled up a production schedule. "Every mining laser we build can be converted to a weapon in under an hour. Every terraforming plant doubles as a shield generator. Every piece of equipment has a dual purpose." The officer smiled. "The Council thinks we're just trying to survive in here. They have no idea we're preparing for war." Back on Earth, General Hyun received a decoded transmission that made his hands shake. It was from one of the Council's own networks, intercepted by their growing intelligence operation. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. The transmission was a timeline. The Council had never intended the quarantine to be permanent. In 5 years, they planned to activate something called Protocol Omega. The barrier would collapse catastrophically, destroying everything in the solar system. The Council would tell the galaxy it was a tragic accident caused by human aggression. Hyun immediately called an emergency meeting with world leaders. President Dae-hyun listened to the report, his face growing darker with each word. 5 years, Dae-hyun said quietly. "They gave us 5 years before they murder 8 billion people and blame us for it." Defense Minister Nari slammed her fist on the table. "We need to accelerate everything. Every project, every plan, every prototype. We're not just trying to escape anymore. We're racing against our own extermination." The news was kept secret from the public to avoid mass panic, but every person working on the resistance effort learned the truth. The timeline had changed. They no longer had the luxury of patience. Dr. Yuna's quantum phasing project received unlimited resources. The first prototype device was built in just 4 months. It was a small probe, barely 2 meters long, designed to test whether her theory would work. Taeyang watched as the probe was launched toward the barrier. Everyone held their breath as it approached the quantum wall that had imprisoned them for 18 months. The probe's engines switched to the new phasing drive. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the probe's signal vanished from their screens. 3 seconds later, it reappeared on the other side of the barrier. It had worked. It had actually worked. The celebration in the control room was brief. They had proven it was possible, but the probe had only stayed outside for 14 seconds before the automatic return triggered, and the Council's detection systems had shown no sign of noticing the breach. "They can't see us when we phase," Yuna said, studying the data. "Their sensors are designed to detect normal ships breaking through. They're not looking for quantum phasing." Over the next 6 months, the project expanded rapidly. Larger vessels were built with the phasing technology. Each one was tested carefully, spending a bit more time outside the barrier. The Council never noticed. Admiral Ji-hoon, promoted after his successful monitoring of the barrier, proposed a bold plan called Operation Exodus Chain. Instead of breaking free all at once, they would slowly, secretly, move people and resources outside the barrier. They would establish hidden bases in star systems the Council had labeled as worthless. "The Council controls the valuable systems," Ji-hoon explained to the command staff, "but there are hundreds of systems they ignore. Too far from trade routes, too few resources, too difficult to develop. They're beneath the Council's notice." "Which makes them perfect for us," Taeyang added. "What they see as worthless, we see as opportunity." The operation began. Small teams phased through the barrier, carrying construction equipment and supplies. They traveled to 17 different systems and started building in secret. Small bases at first, just enough to survive. But each base could support more people, build more ships, and extend humanity's reach further. At Fortress Kelmara, Minho finally received confirmation that his messages had been getting through. A coded signal came back, hidden in a routine station broadcast. Just 3 words: "We received everything." Minho gathered the other prisoners in the recreation area, speaking quietly so the guards wouldn't hear. "We have 18 months of intelligence ready to go. When the time comes, we're going to give the galaxy a gift. Every secret the Council tried to hide, every lie they told, everything." On Earth, as the second year of quarantine ended, people looked up at the stars with different eyes than before. They were no longer looking with wonder or hope. They were looking with determination and anger. In her speech marking the quarantine's 2nd anniversary, President Dae-hyun spoke carefully, knowing the Council was listening. "We remain committed to peaceful coexistence," she said. But in her eyes was a different message, one every human understood. "We're coming for you." 4 years into the quarantine, Lieutenant Yoonji sat in the pilot seat of the prototype vessel called Wraith 1. The ship was small, designed for only 3 crew members, but it represented 4 years of desperate innovation. Today would prove whether all that work meant anything. "Wraith 1, you are cleared for phase jump," the control center announced. "Good luck." Yoonji took a deep breath and engaged the Wraith drive. The ship began to vibrate at a frequency that made her teeth hurt. The barrier approached on the view screen, a shimmering wall of quantum energy that had trapped humanity for so long. Then they were through. Just like that, the barrier was behind them. Open space stretched ahead, more beautiful than Yoonji had ever imagined. She checked the timer. They had 14 seconds before the automatic return triggered. "We're out," she whispered. "We're actually out." The ship phased back through the barrier exactly 14 seconds later. But those 14 seconds proved everything. The Council's detection systems showed no alerts, no warnings, no signs that anything had happened. Humanity had found a gap in technology built on 10,000 years of rigid thinking. Dr. Sunho reviewed the data with barely contained excitement. The aliens built their barrier and never improved it. They found something that worked and assumed it would always work. They never imagined someone might find a different approach. Admiral Ji-hoon saw the opportunity immediately. "We start Phase 2 of Exodus Chain. 47 vessels, full construction crews, military assets. We establish permanent bases in every worthless system we can reach." Over the next 6 months, the operation expanded dramatically. Human ships phased through the barrier regularly now, each one carrying people and equipment to hidden bases across the galaxy. The Council's monitoring stations saw nothing unusual. Earth appeared to be quietly accepting its imprisonment. The 17 worthless systems became humanity's secret empire. On planets the Council had surveyed once and dismissed forever, human cities began to grow. Mining operations extracted resources the Council thought weren't valuable enough. Shipyards built vessels using designs the aliens had never considered. At Fortress Kelmara, Minho knew the time had come. For 4 years, he and the other prisoners had been copying classified files, mapping security systems, and waiting for the right moment. That moment was now. "Everyone ready?" he asked the strike team quietly. They had spent months planning this, using maintenance schedules and guard rotations they had memorized. Tonight, during a planned system update, there would be a 3-minute gap in the security grid. When the gap appeared, Minho's team moved fast. They didn't head for the escape pods. Instead, they went straight to the station's main communications array. The guards had never considered that the prisoners might want to stay on the station, so that area was lightly protected. Minho plugged in the data crystal containing 4 years of copied intelligence. Everything they had learned about council operations, military positions, hidden agreements, and classified plans. Most importantly, the full details of Protocol Omega and the planned extermination of Earth. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Minho ordered. "I want every species in the galaxy to receive this." The transmission went out in a massive burst. Every communication network in Council space received it simultaneously. There was too much data coming from too many directions for the Council to stop it all. Within hours, the galaxy exploded with reaction. 16 minor species, long controlled by the Council's protective guidance, began demanding answers. Why had they never been told the truth about Earth? What other secrets was the Council hiding? How many other species had been suppressed or eliminated? On the Council homeworld, Ambassador Veltharis watched his carefully constructed order fall apart. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. 3 council members resigned in disgrace. The unified authority they had maintained for thousands of years was fracturing. But Veltharis wasn't finished. If the council couldn't maintain control through authority, he would maintain it through fear. He called an emergency meeting of the remaining council leadership. "We activate Protocol Omega," he announced. "Immediately." Several council members objected. The timeline was 5 years. We're only at 4. "The timeline doesn't matter anymore," Veltharis said coldly. "The humans have proven they're exactly as dangerous as we feared. We end this now, before they spread further. We collapse the barrier, destroy Earth, and blame the disaster on human aggression. The minor species will fall back in line when they see what happens to those who defy us." The vote was close, but fear won. Protocol Omega was activated. The countdown began, 72 hours until the barrier would collapse catastrophically, destroying everything in the solar system. On Earth, warning alarms screamed across every monitoring station. Dr. Yuna's team detected the change in the barrier's energy signature immediately. "The barrier's destabilizing," she reported to General Hyun. "It's not a malfunction. It's controlled. Someone activated the failsafe deliberately." Hyun checked the countdown on his screen. 72 hours. 3 days before 8 billion people died. He called Admiral Ji-hoon immediately. "They know. They activated Protocol Omega early. We're out of time." Ji-hoon stood in the war room aboard Unity Station, one of the hidden human bases outside the barrier. Around him, military officers from across Earth's forces waited for orders. The plan had always been to wait, to prepare more, to be stronger before confronting the Council. That plan was now worthless. "We split our forces," Ji-hoon decided. "Half stays behind to evacuate as many people as possible through the phased ships. The other half comes with me. We're assaulting Nexus Prime." The room went silent. Nexus Prime was the Council's central command station, the most heavily fortified location in known space. It was defended by over 400 warships and protected by shields that had never been breached. "That's suicide," one officer said. "Maybe," Ji-hoon agreed, "but it's where the barrier's control system is located. If we want to stop Protocol Omega, we have to take Nexus Prime, and we have 72 hours to do it." Captain Nari volunteered to lead the assault fleet. 32 ships, carrying humanity's best pilots and soldiers. They were outnumbered 13-1. But humans had been fighting against impossible odds for thousands of years before they ever reached the stars. "We're not trying to win a fair fight," Nari told her fleet commanders. Fair fights are for people who have the luxury of choice. We're going to hit them in ways they've never imagined, because they've never had to imagine them. Dr. Yuna presented her final innovation to the command staff. A quantum virus. It doesn't destroy the barrier, it inverts it. Instead of keeping us in, it locks them out. But someone needs to deploy it manually from inside Nexus Prime's quantum core. Taiyang immediately stood up. I'll do it. It's a one-way trip, Yuna warned. The radiation in the core will kill you in minutes, even with the best protection. I know, Taiyang said calmly. But everyone on Earth dies in 3 days if I don't. That's an easy choice. On Mars, Engineer Jisoo received the emergency orders and smiled grimly. For 4 years, she had been building and preparing. Now it was time to use everything they had created. All ships, all stations, all defensive platforms, she broadcast across the Mars defense fleet. Coordinate for synchronized action. We're creating a quantum feedback loop. The energy from Protocol Omega won't destroy Earth. We're going to redirect it right back at the Council. As the countdown continued, humanity prepared for its greatest gamble. Everything they had built, everyone they could save, all of it depended on the next 72 hours. The galaxy would never be the same. 68 hours remained when Captain Nari's assault fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Nexus Prime. The massive station hung in space like a metal moon, surrounded by hundreds of Council warships arranged in perfect defensive formations. The Council's fleet commander looked at his tactical display and almost laughed. 32 human ships against 400 Council vessels. The primitive species had lost their minds. All ships, maintain defensive positions, he ordered calmly. Let them come to us. This will be over quickly. What the commander didn't understand was that humans had been studying warfare for thousands of years. While the Council's fleets had maintained peace through overwhelming force, humans had spent centuries fighting wars where survival meant outsmarting stronger enemies. Nari gave the order. Execute pattern chaos. The human fleet scattered in every direction, moving in patterns that seemed random and panicked. The Council ships adjusted their formation to intercept. Then the human ships stopped running and started attacking, but not where the Council expected. Human missiles didn't target the big warships. They targeted sensor arrays and communication relays. Human fighters didn't engage in direct combat. They dropped electronic warfare packages that jammed coordination between Council ships. Human destroyers didn't try to break the defensive line. They created holes in it by forcing ships to move out of position. They're not trying to win, the Council commander realized with growing horror. They're trying to create confusion. Within 20 minutes, the perfect defensive formation had collapsed into chaos. Ships couldn't communicate properly. Sensors were showing ghost images. Coordination was failing. And while the Council fleet tried to reorganize, Nari's actual assault team was already past them, heading straight for Nexus Prime itself. Aboard his stealth ship, Taiyang watched the station's shields approach. The Wraith drive engaged, and his vessel phased through the quantum barriers as if they didn't exist. The same technology that had let humanity escape their prison now let them infiltrate the most secure facility in the galaxy. The ship materialized inside the station's main hangar. Alarms immediately began screaming, but Taiyang was already moving. He had studied the station's layout from the intelligence Minho had gathered. Every corridor, every access point, every security checkpoint. Chief Engineer Hana's voice came through his comm from far away on Earth. I'm linked to your suit's sensors. I can see what you see. I'll guide you through their systems. Taeyong ran through corridors filled with confused alien guards. They had never trained for an intruder inside their own station. Their security was designed to stop threats from outside, not someone who had already bypassed all their defenses. Left at the next junction, Hana directed. Then through the maintenance tunnel. It's not guarded because they never thought anyone would get this far. Taeyang followed her instructions, fighting when he had to, hiding when he could. The quantum core was deep in the station's center, surrounded by layers of security, but each layer had been designed by people who had never faced a truly desperate enemy. On Mars, engineer Jisoo watched her screens as every human ship, station, and defensive platform synchronized their operations. The mathematics were insane. They were trying to create a quantum feedback loop across the entire solar system, using technology they had barely understood 4 years ago. "All units report ready," her assistant announced. Jisoo looked at the countdown. 42 hours remaining. "We hold until Taeyang deploys the virus. The timing has to be perfect, or none of this works." Back in space, Nari's fleet was paying a heavy price. 10 ships had been destroyed. 15 more were heavily damaged, but they were still fighting, still creating chaos, still preventing the Council fleet from coordinating an effective response. On Nexus Prime, Veltharis watched the battle with growing fury. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "They're primitives. They've been isolated for 4 years. His tactical officer reviewed the data. "They're not fighting like a normal fleet. They're fighting like guerrillas. Hit and run. Misdirection. Attacking our weaknesses instead of our strengths." "Then adapt," Veltharis screamed. "Change our formation. Coordinate a proper response." "We're trying, sir. But their jamming is too effective. We can't communicate across the fleet efficiently." Taeyang reached the quantum core's outer door. It was sealed with security systems that would take hours to bypass normally. Hana fed him a code sequence they had extracted from the station's network through Minho's data. The door opened. Taeyang stepped into a chamber filled with swirling energy. The quantum core pulsed at the center, a sphere of light and power that controlled the barrier around Earth. The radiation levels were already climbing on his suit's sensors. "You have maybe 10 minutes before the exposure kills you," Hana said quietly. "I'm sorry." "Don't be," Taeyang replied. "This is exactly where I need to be." He pulled out the data crystal containing Dr. Yuna's quantum virus and approached the core's interface. The system was designed to be accessed only by Council technicians, but the basic principles were the same as Earth technology. Hana talked him through the connection process. "Upload starting," Taeyang announced. "How long?" 8 minutes, Hana said. "Can you hold on that long?" Taeyang could already feel the radiation sickness starting. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurring. "I'll hold as long as it takes." Outside, guards finally found the core chamber. They started trying to break through the emergency blast door Taeyang had sealed behind him. He could hear them cutting through the metal, but he just focused on the upload progress bar. 60%, 70%. In space, Jisoo saw her signal. Taeyang had deployed the virus. The barrier was beginning to change. Now came the impossible part. "All units, execute quantum feedback cascade," she ordered. "Now!" Across the solar system, every human vessel, every station, every defense platform activated their quantum generators simultaneously. They weren't trying to break the barrier anymore. They were feeding energy into it, creating a resonance pattern that grew stronger with each passing second. The barrier began to invert, just as Dr. Yuna had predicted. The quantum field that had kept humanity imprisoned started expanding outward instead. The Council fleet found themselves suddenly trapped inside, while the barrier pushed beyond them, engulfing more and more space. On Nexus Prime, the guards broke through the blast door just as Taeyang's upload hit 100%. He turned to face them, knowing he had won. "Too late," he said, smiling. "It's done." The quantum virus activated. The barrier's energy signature inverted completely. And then Jisoo's feedback cascade reached critical mass. The energy that Protocol Omega had meant to use to destroy Earth suddenly had nowhere to go but backward. It flowed through subspace, following the pathways back to their source. Every Council military installation connected to the barrier network suddenly found itself receiving the destructive energy meant for humanity. Across the galaxy, Council military bases exploded. Weapons platforms disintegrated. Fortress stations collapsed. In one devastating moment, the Council's entire military infrastructure was destroyed by their own weapon. On Nexus Prime, Veltharis watched his empire fall apart in real time. Every screen showed the same thing: destruction. His own weapon turned against him. He fell to his knees, finally understanding. The humans hadn't just survived the cage he built. They had turned it into a weapon and used it to destroy everything he had created. Taeyang collapsed in the quantum core chamber, his body finally giving out from the radiation. His last thought was simple: we did it. We won. The Galactic Council had tried to destroy Earth. Instead, they had destroyed themselves, and humanity had only just begun to show the galaxy what they could do. 6 months had passed since the reversal. Ambassador Veltharis stood in chains before the Galactic Assembly, held in what used to be Nexus Prime. The station had been rebuilt and renamed Unity Station. Everything had changed. President Dae-hyun sat at the head of the assembly, watching the former council leader with cold eyes. Around her sat representatives from 41 different species. Some had been part of the old council. Most had not. All of them had voted to be here. "You stand accused of conspiracy to commit genocide," Dae-hyun announced. "The attempted murder of 8 billion human beings. How do you plead?" Veltharis stared at her with confusion and anger mixed together. "I still don't understand," he said. "You were primitives. You had only just reached the stars. How did you defeat us?" Dae-hyun stood and walked closer to him. "You want to know our secret? It's simple. You stopped evolving the day you achieved comfort. You built an empire and then spent 10,000 years maintaining it. You never had to adapt, so you never learned how." She gestured around the assembly chamber. "We've never known comfort. Human history is written in struggle and adaptation. We change or we die. That's been our reality for thousands of years. You gave us 4 years of pressure and isolation, and we transformed completely, because that's what we do." The trial lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming. Protocol Omega, the planned extermination, the lies told to justify the quarantine. At the end, the verdict was unanimous. Veltharis and 17 other former council leaders were found guilty and sentenced to permanent imprisonment. Commander Ji-hoon, now chairman of the Galactic Assembly, took over the proceedings after the trial ended. He looked different than he had 6 months ago. The weight of leadership had changed him, but not broken him. "The old council maintained order through fear and hierarchy," Ji-hoon announced. "Some species were considered advanced, others were considered primitive. Some had rights, others had restrictions. That system dies today." He activated the holographic display, showing the new assembly charter. "Every species gets an equal vote, no matter their technology level, no matter their territory size, no matter when they achieved spaceflight. Every voice matters equally." 41 species had joined the assembly voluntarily. The 6 that refused were left alone, neither helped nor hindered. Freedom meant the freedom to choose, even if that choice was isolation. In the science division of Unity Station, Dr. Yuna and Dr. Sunho led the new Cooperative Technology Initiative. Species that had been denied advancement by the Council's protective guidance now had access to research and knowledge freely shared. "Look at this," Sunho said excitedly, showing Yuna results from a joint project with the Kelvin species. "They've been stuck at the same technology level for 300 years because the Council said they weren't ready. We shared our quantum theory with them 6 months ago. They just made a breakthrough we never considered." Yuna smiled. "That's what happens when you stop hoarding knowledge. When you let everyone contribute, you get solutions from perspectives you never imagined." In 6 months, 12 species had achieved major breakthroughs. Technologies the Council said would take centuries were being developed in months through cooperation. On Mars, engineer Jisoo stood in the same complex where she had built weapons and warships during the quarantine. Now the facilities were being converted back to civilian use, but the shipyards remained, repurposed for a different purpose. "How many ships are under construction?" asked a visiting assembly representative. 47, Jisoo replied. "But these aren't warships. They're explorers, cargo vessels, research platforms. Ships built by multiple species working together." She walked to the viewing window overlooking the construction bays. "The Council hoarded military power to maintain control. We're building a different kind of strength. The strength that comes from cooperation." But the military hadn't disappeared. General Hyun, Admiral Nari, and Captain Yoonji had established the Federation Defense Force. It wasn't Earth's military. It was the galaxy's. 41 species contributed ships and personnel. The force was small compared to what the old council had maintained, but it operated under a different principle that Hyun explained to the new recruits. "We don't exist to conquer or control," he told them. "We exist to protect, to ensure that what happened to Earth never happens to anyone else. That no species ever again uses force to suppress another." The Federation Defense Force had a simple doctrine: never again would might dictate right. On Earth, pilot Minho walked through the Memorial Plaza. A massive wall displayed the names of 47,000 humans who had died during the quarantine, people who hadn't survived to see freedom, people who had sacrificed everything so others could live. Minho placed a flower at the base of the wall, like he did every week. "We made it," he whispered, "and we made sure it mattered." A young child approached him, maybe 7 years old. "Were you really in the prison station?" the child asked. "I was," Minho said, kneeling down to the child's level. "Were you scared?" Minho thought about his answer carefully. "Every day, but being scared didn't mean giving up. It meant working harder, thinking smarter, and never forgetting what we were fighting for." The child ran off to join his parents, and Minho stood up. A new generation was growing up in a galaxy where Earth wasn't isolated or imprisoned. They would know freedom that his generation had to fight for. Aboard the UES Discovery, engineer Jisoo prepared for the vessel's maiden voyage. It was humanity's most advanced ship, built using technology shared by 17 different species. The crew reflected that cooperation: humans, Kelvins, former council species who had joined the assembly, all working together. "All systems ready," she announced to Captain Dae-hyun, the president's daughter who had chosen exploration over politics. "Take us out," Captain Dae-hyun ordered. The Discovery engaged its Wraith drive and phased into faster-than-light travel. They were heading beyond the old council's borders, into unexplored space, no longer running or hiding or fighting, just exploring, like humanity had always dreamed. Jisoo stood at the observation window, watching stars streak past. She thought about the journey that had brought them here. 4 years of imprisonment, 4 years of fear and desperation and innovation. 4 years that had changed everything. The Council had tried to cage Earth to protect themselves. Instead, they had forced humanity to become exactly what they feared: unstoppable. But in that crucible of pressure and isolation, humans had also become something the Council never could have imagined. They had become liberators, teachers, partners. They had learned that true strength wasn't domination. It was lifting others up instead of holding them down. The Galactic Council was gone, their 10,000-year reign ended by the very species they tried to eliminate. In its place stood the Galactic Assembly, chaotic and imperfect, but free. Some worlds still struggled with the transition. Some species missed the stability the Council had provided. Change was never easy. But for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy had a choice. Every species could determine its own future. Chairman Ji-hoon gave a speech marking the 6-month anniversary of the Assembly's founding. He spoke from Unity Station, the symbol of everything that had changed. "We didn't ask for the quarantine," he said. "We didn't want to fight. But when we were forced to, we didn't just fight for ourselves. We fought for the idea that no one should be caged for being different, that no one should be eliminated for having potential." He looked directly into the camera, knowing billions of beings across the galaxy were watching. The Council era is over. The Assembly era has begun. It won't be perfect. There will be arguments and disagreements and mistakes, but it will be ours, all of ours, together. On Earth, President Dae-hyun watched the speech and smiled. She thought about how far humanity had come, from isolated planet to galactic leader, from victims to partners. She thought about Tai-yang, who had sacrificed everything in the quantum core, about the 47,000 names on the memorial wall, about every person who had fought and struggled and refused to give up. "We did it," she whispered to herself. "We actually did it." The galaxy would never be the same. The age of the Galactic Council had ended. The era of the Galactic Assembly, with all its chaos and possibility, had begun. And somewhere among the stars, human ships flew alongside alien vessels, exploring together, building together, growing together. The cage was broken. The future was open. And humanity had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from holding others down, but from helping them rise.